Assalamu alaikum, dears, how are you? All what we can achieve here in this world during this life might have some significance. All the things combined, put it on the one side of the scale, and in the other side of it, just one of these, one thing. I think this one thing alone will be heavier, will be carrying more weightage. And this one thing is called self esteem. So, self esteem is the biggest ever achievement a person can have a good self esteem, a high self esteem. So, today we have made it a topic of our discussion. What about the self esteem? Let's begin it from the very definition of it. Self esteem refers to an individual's overall evaluation of their worth, their value, and of course their abilities. Overall evaluation of their worth, their value, their abilities. So that is, combined, all of these things combined convert into our self esteem. So the better we are, as for the three of these things are concerned, the higher will be our self esteem. But remember that it's we ourselves who have to evaluate all that and no one else. So, for this reason, it is very important to be very careful. Now, let's go to the next segment of our today's discussion, and this is the components of the self esteem. There are four components of the self esteem. The number one is it is the self awareness. I need to be aware about myself. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What kind of attitudes do I have? What kind of thoughts do I quite often I do in my mind. So every important thing about myself, that is called self-awareness. So the first component of the good self-esteem, of the self-esteem, it is self-awareness. The second is self-acceptance. We have to accept ourselves. I'm not asking that the other should accept me, that person or this person should accept me. I need to accept myself and from the very depth of my heart. The third is it is the self respect. Not only that I have to accept myself, rather I have to respect myself as well. The fourth is the confidence, mean how confident I am. So these are the four important components of self esteem. So that is the third segment of our today's discussion upon the self esteem. The third segment of it is about types of self esteem. So there are three types of self esteem. The first type, it is high self esteem. And what is the high self esteem? It is the positive self image, it is the confidence, and it is the resilience. Positive self image, not my image on the eyes of others, but it is my image, my self image. So what is the picture of myself in my opinion? Then it is the secondly, it is the confidence, and thirdly it is the resilience. Resilience mean being flexible, and here the flexibility mean that if at all somebody has suffered a setback, if at all somebody has failed, so they shouldn't give up, rather they should keep their morale high. Okay, I will stand up again, I will keep struggling again, I will start winning again. So that is the resilience. So that is the resilience. So the high self-esteem, it is the combination of positive self-image, the confidence, and of course the resilience. So then the second type of self-esteem, it is the low self-esteem. And what is the low self-esteem? It is actually negative self-image instead of a positive self-image. Mean my image about myself, unfortunately if it is negative, so that means actually the low self-esteem. And the second is it is the self-doubt instead of the self-confidence. There is a self-doubt. So that is also that also makes and contributes toward the low self-esteem. And the third is vulnerability. Vulnerability mean that I'm not confident about my future, rather I keep thinking this might happen, that might happen. So that is called vulnerability. I consider myself as very much weak and prone to different types of assaults from the other people. So that is called, vulnerability. So this is the low self-esteem, comprising negative self-talk, self-doubt instead of the self-confidence. And of course it is the vulnerability. That is the second type of self-esteem. The third type of self-esteem, it is the fragile self-esteem. What is the fragile self-esteem? It is actually being sensitive to criticism and prone to defensiveness. I'm very sensitive about myself, and it is very hard for me to bear the criticism from the other people. So this actually means that I do have the fragile self-esteem, and also I'm prone to defensiveness. Every time somebody criticizes me, I start defending myself. So that is, this is, there are three types of the self-esteem. The first is the high self-esteem, the second is the low self-esteem, and the third, that is the fragile self-esteem. Now we need to go to the next chapter, the next segment of the self-esteem. So it is factors influencing the self-esteem. There are certain factors which does influence the self-esteem. These factors are actually six in number. The first such factor is childhood experiences. My childhood experiences, your childhood experiences, these does affect our self-esteem. And the second is, it is, parenting style, the way somebody is treated by their parents. So it does influence our self-esteem. The third factor influencing the self-esteem, it is the social media, which has become very very powerful today. The fourth factor which does influence our self-esteem, it is the achievements or the failures, whether I was successful enough in my previous life or I was a failure. So it does affect my self-esteem. Now the sixth factor which influences a lot, the self-esteem of somebody, it is the cultural and the social expectation. What is the culturally what people expect from me, and socially what people expect from me, it does influence my self-esteem, the self-esteem of anyone else. So these are the six factors actually which does influence the self-esteem of somebody. Let's go to the next segment, the next chapter of the self-esteem topic, and it is the characteristics of a healthy self-esteem. What are the characteristics of it? The characteristics of a healthy, a high, a very good self-esteem. So there are six characteristics. The first one is, it is the positive self-talk. Every one of us talks about to oneself. Rather, I shall like to say that our self-talk is much much more as compared to the talk we do to all the people combined. So it is the first one, it is the positive self-talk. The second is realistic self-expectation, expecting something from myself in quite a realistic way. What does it mean? That I should not expect too much from me, because with the humble background, or with the very little resources, or the every type of talents and the ambition, I should not expect too much from me. It is the realistic self expectation. The third is, it is the self acceptance. I need to accept myself, from the very bottom of my heart. There could be certain weaknesses of mine, and there could be certain other problems which does exist in the life of everybody. Nobody on earth is a perfect person at all. So keeping in view all that, I need to accept myself. And once I say that I need to accept myself, it does not mean that I don't need to improve myself. Rather, if at all somebody has accepted themselves, they have more capable, they are more prone to improve themselves. So it is the self acceptance. The fourth is, it is the resilience. I need to become very resilient. And what does the resilience mean? That if at all I have suffered a setback, if at all I have suffered a failure, it does not mean that I should give up. Rather, I should have enough amount of the confidence that yes, I can do this. So it is actually, it is the resilience. The fifth one, it is the confidence. I need to be confident enough, I need to have the confidence in myself. The sixth is the self care. I need to take care of myself. I need to, if at all I don't take care of myself, Who else is going to do that? Now the next, very next segment of this self-esteem, it is the sign of low self-esteem. What are the signs of the low self-esteem? There are six signs of the low self-esteem. The first one, it is the self-criticism. Stop criticizing yourself. Be open to the positive feedback. And also, it is improving ourselves. That is our responsibility. But always criticizing yourself, that is being the worst enemy of yourself. The second is the self doubt instead of the self confidence. I need to be confident enough instead of keep doubting about myself. The third is fear of failure. That is totally something wrong, because everybody does fail, and if at all somebody have a fear of failure, they will never try. And if they don't try, how come will they be able to succeed? Now the fourth is the people pleasing. People pleasing is not good at all. It does not mean that we need to become rude or arrogant. I'm not talking about all that. But at the same time, people pleasing, it is not a good sign at all. The fifth is difficulty setting boundaries. We need to set the boundaries, because there is a limit, to what extent everybody can enter in my life, or to what extent somebody can interfere in my life. There is a limit, and not without a limit at all. There must be certain rules and regulations. So that is setting of the boundaries. Now the sixth is negative self-talk. Never indulge in the negative self-talk. Always talk positively about yourself, to yourself. So these are the signs of a low self-esteem. Going to the next segment of it, it is building self-esteem. How can somebody build the self-esteem? So there are seven ways. The first way, it is the practice self-compassion. Be compassionate, don't be harsh, rather be kind-hearted toward yourself. Does not mean the self-indulgence at all, but being kind to yourself. That is the number one thing, for while building the self-esteem. The second is challenging the negative thought. Always challenge the negative thought, defeat them, throw them out of your mind, and instead bring the positive. We are talking about how to build the self-esteem. So focusing on the strengths and not the weaknesses. Every one of us have certain weaknesses and certain strengths. If at all we are focused on our weaknesses, our self-esteem, self-confidence will come down. But if at all we are focused upon our strength, our self-confidence and self-esteem will go up. Now the fourth is focus on what you have instead of what you are lacking. Again, if at all we are focused on what we don't have, it means that we will be experiencing the low self confidence and the low self esteem. But if at all we are focused on what we are having, so it means that we are more feeling more confident, having more self esteem. The fifth is set a realistic goal. Setting realistic goals, because if at all the goals are unrealistic, and there will be nothing but the wastage of time. And if at all we are wasting our time that much, it means nothing, but it means that we will be feeling the low self-esteem and the low self-confidence, because we could not achieve anything else. On the other hand, if at all the goals are realistic one, and we are working smart and hard to achieve them, it means that we will be able to achieve those realistic goals as well. Now the sixth is develop self-care habits. We need to take care of ourselves. Others have their own pressing problems, their own priorities. We are not their priority at all, and nobody remains with us 24/7. Nobody can feel the way we feel. So we need to take care of ourselves. We need to develop the self-care habits. The seventh and the last is surround yourself with the positive influences. Always try to meet the people who are positive enough instead of the people who are negative enough. So these are the seven ways to build the self-esteem. Moving toward the next segment of it, what are the self-esteem boosters? What are the activities or the things which will boost my self-esteem, your self-esteem? So these things are again six in number. First one is exercise and physical activity. The second is mindfulness and meditation. The third is creative expression, like you are a writer, a speaker, an artist, a painter, a musician, you sing, but it is a creative expression. The fourth is learning new skills, and the fifth is spending time in nature. Always remaining in an artificial and man-made things, it is not good. Spare some of your time, for some of the time only, and be in the nature. And the sixth is positive affirmation. Always repeat the positive thoughts which are motivating, which are encouraging. So these are the six self-esteem boosters. So moving to the next segment of it, and we will talk about that what will nurture your self-esteem, what can nurture your self-esteem. So there are seven ways by which we can nurture our self-esteem. The first one is practicing self-compassion and self-care. Don't be a harsh critic of yourself, rather be a kind-hearted person with you, especially when you suffer a setback, especially when you suffer a failure. So in that case, practice the self-compassion. The second way to nurture your self-esteem, it is challenging negative thoughts. Always challenge, always make them run away out of your mind. Always fight with a negative thought, and always support, like the positive thought, which does improve you, which does motivate you, which builds the confidence in you. So that is challenging negative thought. The third is focusing on strengths instead of the weaknesses. Do not focus on your weaknesses, always focus on your strength. The fifth is focus on what you have, not what you are lacking. The fifth is the building resilience. Resilience mean you are man of all season. You have suffered a failure, you have suffered a setback, no problem. Don't give up. Stand up again and tell yourself, I'm more experienced, I'm stronger than ever before, I can work better, my quality of work has gone up, my quantity of work has gone up. So that is building resilience. And the last is surround yourself with the positive influences. Always talk to, meet the positive people who encourage you, motivate you, instead of those who are seen pulling your leg, instead of those people who are doing the gossip about you, instead of those people who are seen talking negative about you in your absence or in your presence. So that is the self-esteem. Of course, very important thing, we talked about its definition, we talked about its components, we talked about the types of self-esteem, we talked about factors influencing the self-esteem, we talked about the characteristics of healthy self-esteem, we talked about the signs of low self-esteem, we talked about the building self-esteem, we talked about the self-esteem boosters, we talked about at the end nurture your self-esteem. That is all from me today.